Hello everyone, this is Michael Mirdad, and it's time for our Friday night Spiritual Insights with Michael Mirdad. So today I would like to talk about the importance of truly nurturing the real version of an inner child, having a relationship with our child self. Now, what I'm not talking about is the proverbial broken, wounded child that some people work with, okay? There's a place for it and there's a place not for it. It can get a little out there to go too far into identifying with a wounded part of ourselves. It's not to ignore that we've been wounded, but having been is different from being wounded, like holding that as your identity. So, think twice about that. And you can freely pass along meditations I do along these lines of this topic or any topic. I'm fine with that. I don't even ask people to like credit me. If something feels right, if you're purposefully stealing something of somebody else as a teaching or a quote, that's just bad karma. But I don't need credited because first of all, it's God, and that's fine, and I'll get whatever from God, not from mankind per se all the time. But it's also that if something comes through me and it really clicks for you, make it yours anyway. It's an amazing thing because it helps in some ways as a networking to say, oh, this Michael guy said this, this, this. And that's kind of, makes popular authors and teachers and all that. These memes out there in the world, Michael, Mirdad quotes this and this, this. I don't know. My brain just doesn't work that way. I probably should do a little more of that. And if you guys like quotes of mine, you're absolutely welcome. Make your little memes and share it with the world because most of the stuff being shared is crap, no offense, but it often is. It's kind of watered down and silly. And there's teachers that aren't even teachers that are being quoted on people's Facebook pages and on social media. And it's like really strange. They're not even really deep quotes sometimes, but whatever works for people. So it's nice and it's a compliment if you do share them, but I don't get legalistic about it. If someone's, trying to rip something off and pretend it's theirs, that's kind of silly and that's bad karma, like I said, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you folks own this. If you like something I say, then it's yours. You can now say, here's the truth. I've said this so many times in all my years of teaching. It's not true, accurate, nor necessary for you to walk around going, Michael said, Michael said. It's called parroting, Michael said, and that's just, it's just not, I don't need that. And you don't need that. It's better for you and for me. It's better for you to own it and just say it. If someone says, wow, where did you hear that? If it's true that you heard it from me, say that. But say things that are true as though they're you saying it, because it is you saying it. Even if I said it, you still liked it and made it yours, so speak about it firsthand. Now, today we're talking about this concept of inner child, but there's a different approach. The true inner child is the Christ child inside of all of us. But we also have, let's say, this concept in psychology, a wounded child. It doesn't really do us a lot of good to keep identifying with that. And this isn't actually the time or talk on that. What I do want to talk about is, in a sense, neither and both of those, in a sense. Because I want to talk about this, and a lot of you that have had sessions, especially recently, I've used this metaphor, and it's so helpful. I swear, you use this and it'll change everything you do. You can call me for sessions and we can have great deep sessions. I do intuitive readings in the sessions and I do healing in the sessions, counseling in the sessions. It's great. But a lot of times folks would find themselves healing so much faster, so much more efficiently and effectively if they just use this one technique. Try to imagine, and a lot of you have heard me say this, but try to imagine that you've adopted a child somehow. Tragically, someone passed away, a friend, a family member, and you inherit this child. Or somehow you just end up with this child. And you love this child. So this is about treating yourself as you would a child you love. That's why it's not about the wounded child, even though you might love that wounded child. I'm talking about a child that, whether they've been wounded or not, either one applies. That's why I said some of this can include wounded child or not. It's okay either way. Even if a child's been wounded, you want to lead it in a new direction. So how would you treat a child if you had one? So let's go with this now. Think about things you've done in your life that you would not have recommended to a 5-year-old that you loved. Those are the things you should not have done. Should you feel regret? Don't dwell on it. Don't obsess on it. But is it worth saying, it's true, I would not have done that? Great. Now let's not do that again. If you were 10 years old and you stole a piece of bubble gum, but you wouldn't tell a child to do it, you can now say officially, I wouldn't do that again. As soon as you say I wouldn't do it again, you know what it means? I'm done. The karma's gone. I'm clear. You see, you're establishing a maturity. And even though I'm saying a child, like let's say 5, 10, whatever it is, you have to use an age of a child hypothetically, and you're using this as your compass of decision making. You're using this as a compass. See, because if I say use God as a compass, you can do that. That's what I do. But when you're still not sure and you say, well, Michael said to use love as my compass or peace and happiness as my compass, which all of us should do. Still, when all else fails, if you still aren't sure, try the second technique, which is, what would I recommend to a child I loved? And sometimes you might be identifying more with a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, depending on the circumstances. Some of you would say, and righteously so, but Michael, if I have to make a decision about driving to visit a friend in whatever, Tulsa, wherever in the country, children don't drive, how do I use the metaphor of that child? Very good question. But you could still say, what would you tell that child to do if they were older? So in other words, you could say, well, children, 5-year-olds don't have occupations, so how do I use a 5-year-old to decide which job to take? Well, here's what you can do. You could just say, if I were talking to a child, what kind of job would I recommend that they get? That could still help you, you see? You're using it as a hypothetical, and you'll still get some really clear answers. I warn you, though, if you're going to use these two techniques, the one of calling in, like using a theme word, a feeling word for God, like peace and happiness, and you use that as your guide, and then especially if you use it as your backup, treating a child, how would I treat a child? Well, you better be careful because your answers are going to be clearer than anything you've ever asked in terms of for guidance. It'll become very applicable and clear. Applicable meaning I'm using a practical decision-making technique. But if you find your answer and you don't apply it, you better think twice and 3 times about what in the hell you're doing. Because if you ask the question, why even ask if you're not going to follow it? You might not be getting the answer you want. You might, say, okay, I'm thinking about dating this person. Oh, they're so cute and sexy, but I get, funny feelings, and a psychic told me that I'm going to be meeting a psychopath sometime soon. That's not okay, man. There's not a chance in hell I would introduce a 5-year-old to such a person. If you're the type of person who would say, well, I'll just tell, the child, listen, why don't you go watch TV in the other room and I'll date the person, That's cheating, and it's stupid because you're harming everybody involved. If you wouldn't recommend that they date such a person when they get older, then it's not right for you. Oh, well, fine, Michael, then I'll just go ahead and be lonely. Don't whine. It's not going to work with me, nor with God. Anybody with a true consciousness that wants to love you, like if you were a 5-year-old put in my life, I wouldn't, it would be unhealthy for me to say, well, you shouldn't probably see this person or date this kind of person when you get older. And then you throw a tantrum. If I'm the kind of person that would go, oh, don't be mad at me, and give you your way, that is a very sick parent. We've all done it. But to do it as a habit, It's very sick parenting. No boundaries, and you're trying to bargain with your child, and you're also trying to be their friend instead of their mentor or guide. Very, very weak boundaries. It proves that you're so messed up and insecure that you're trying to buy relationships with children instead of leading them. So, I don't mean to sound like I'm getting down, on your case too much, but hey, if the shoe fits, it fits. So onwards we go. How would you treat that child? Something happened and it really hurt me. Should I talk to this person about it? What would you tell the child to do? And I wouldn't tell the child to rant and vent and hate. I would just ask them to tactfully share what happened. I was talking to a couple of clients this week about these ideas and these concepts, and God, it really made such a difference for them to hear this, because it's kind of like saying, just imagine what you would do, and you'll essentially be intuiting answers and feedback and guidance. Everything morphs to some degree. Like I could say to you, I need to decide what I want to talk about tonight. Okay, what if I were a child? Well, I wouldn't speak as a 5-year-old, and I wouldn't only want to speak to a 5-year-old. I would have to really change all the vocabulary, change all the concepts to really simplify and simplify. It wouldn't make sense to an adult audience, even though we all have that childlike innocence within us. It wouldn't make total sense. What I'm saying is you morph it to fit the circumstance, and you can always. Well, how do I make a decision about intimacy or driving a car? Children aren't supposed to be driving cars, and they're not intimate, and they shouldn't be intimate at their young age. So how do I use that? Because you can still say, what would you tell the child to do? Like when they get older. Not that you would use graphic terminology, but what would you recommend? Honey, it's like I told my children when they were young. I didn't have any stringent don't do kind of a thing. I didn't say you're not allowed. I didn't do any of that. All I could say was the truth, which was whomever, wherever, whatever, all I would hope for you guys is that it's someone you love. I'm not even saying it should last forever, you should marry them. Just that it's someone you feel love and respect, which is what I also taught when I taught sacred sexuality, and still teach to some degree, that it should always, everything should be with love and respect, especially when engaged with another person, and especially when dealing with intimacy. So think in terms of, what to do, and follow that guideline, because what'll happen is, underneath all this simplicity of just try this technique, underneath that, what's happening is I'm actually reparenting the child I was, not just the hypothetical child I might have or could be. I'm actually reparenting my own self. When I make a decision, because you might not even remember this part of the talk, when you make a decision or I make a decision and say, well, what would be a safe decision if I loved a child? What would I say to them? They want to go to a person's house and play or whatever. Or they wanted to, what would I say to a child? I'm going to go over a friend's house. They're having a party. And I get there, because party seems okay, fun for that child I would be advising. I get there and there's a lot of odd things going on. What would I hope that child would do if they were at a party and they were 5 or they were 10 or they were 50 and something was off? I would tell them, honey, leave. And when you talk to that child, use words like, that's what happens naturally for me. Hey, sweetheart, hey, honey, here's what I would recommend. You talk and use that terminology. At least that's my recommendation. Doing the technique is what's most important. The vernacular, the terminology, the languaging, really that's your personal preference, of course. But it's so endearing to think of the child as someone you love so much that you say, sweetheart, think twice about that, or I got this job to consider and it pays well, but I don't like anything else about it, man. It's in a town I don't want to live in, and so on and so on and so on. I sit and ask, what would I tell this child if it were gonna, someday when Daddy, yes, honey, um, when I get a job, what kind of job do you think I should get? I'm not going to say high rise, big city, big pay, and you'll hate it. But you just have to do that. That's what our parents sometimes told us. And that I would never do. Almost anything our parents ever advised. They were wrong about almost everything. So, God and father and mother aspect of God, they are my parents, and I'm going to follow that. And they lead me only towards goodness and healthiness and righteousness. Right consciousness is what righteousness means. So, healthiness, so I would say to them, well, and I would give them a story, give them a parable, little whatever, and honey, if you could go to school and be in one classroom and your best friends were there and it was a lot of fun, but it was a little more work. And then there was another classroom, not as much homework, but everybody was mean and it was a very kind of unhappy environment. Which classroom? I swear, 9 out of 10 kids are going to say, I'll take the happy one. They're a little more work. Okay, the average child's going to get it. Happiness wins out overall. Love conquers all, that kind of thing. And so, happiness, man, happiness. That's where I'm going. I'm no settling. See, but you can use it in child terminology and child metaphors. And another thing is, well, why use a child metaphor? Why not just, come up with the same like in an adult status? Because there's an indecency in adults that allows them to betray themselves so easily. But if you ask them to use a child metaphor, they're a little more likely to go, I guess, and go along with a healthy decision. Adults will still lie to themselves, but they have a little more conscience when it comes to lying to children. And I hope, this is making sense because I think it's profound. I really do. And is this like a Michael Mirdad trademarked, patented technique? Guys, nothing needs to be. This is God. This is God telling us, hey, look, if all else fails, try decency. If all else fails, if you guys knew your value, if you really knew who you were, you would already be doing this. You're only using these techniques because you forgot your value. And it just seems easier for you to think the value of a child than you do yourself. That's sad, but it's also okay. Because thank God we came up with something to use as our technique for our decision making. So at first you could say, well, I'll try this on for the past. And it doesn't take much to think, oh yeah, there we go. And then there's the present time decisions. Can I apply it there? Absolutely. Future? Absolutely. But you should be able to apply it to past, present, and future. Past would be a good way to kind of just try it on a little bit, like, test driving something and seeing that you can figure this out. There are clearly decisions you've made that you wouldn't recommend to a child you love. Well, why can't you be the child you love and not do that again? Okay? I can do that, I hope you would say. Good. And just start practicing that principle. And this also then includes, I said to you guys, using this helps you actually apply all these amazing techniques and concepts like boundary setting. What do you think you're doing here? See, this is about boundaries. This is about you healing the child from the past that got wounded. Every time I make a new decision and say, if that child, if today I was being invited to go out to party, and just to a nightclub and whatever. I mean, not that that's bad, not at all. But I'm saying the potential dangers, especially what some people get involved in and the hazards that happen, gals getting drugged and so forth. I'm a loving person, guys. I'm very loving, very forgiving, you have no idea, probably have no idea the extent of it. It's just so easy for me to love and forgive. I remember there was a lawyer once that represented Unity of Sedona. When people are asking for lawyers for divorces, and we have somebody we refer. And there was this one incident where this lawyer that we recommend turned on us and did some things that were not very nice. They could have gotten in a lot of trouble for it. It was rude, it was unethical, it was hurtful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when it was all over with, we just moved forward with them as our attorney. At least for the time being, we did. Because it was forgiven, forgotten. It was kind of like handshake and let it go. And I'm using that example just to say, I've had friends betray me and then call me, need a reading to help improve their lives. Okay, I just never turned anybody away. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You need to honor your boundaries. I just feel pretty good and secure in my ability to handle those things. And these things, it's like practice peace, practice love, practice forgiveness. So I'll come back to that in a sec. But it's still, the child needs to be told. When I'm thinking of, and the reason I brought up that loving forgiving is because if someone says, should I go out to this nightclub, and there's people that are drugging girls and stuff, there's a part of me that would think, well, I know the homework, I know what I'm supposed to do, I tell you guys, God be with me, and practice love and forgiveness. But if I caught a guy doing that, I'd still probably pulverize him. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying it because I think it's such ridiculous, ludicrous, sick behavior. So to pummel them, just, oh my God, man, get a clue, people. This kind of gross behavior. However, in my life, would I go to such a place and do such a thing? I might, not knowing that there's a danger, I'm just going to go dancing or whatever, but knowing that there are potentials of those kinds of things. Do you need to hide and never go out? No. But are there safer places? You have to kind of take responsibility. But I would say to that child, if they said to me, Mom, Dad, is it okay? Is it okay if I go out dancing and stuff when I get older? What would I say to them? And I would say, always have safe friends. And I would come up with constructive answer to give the child, and then that's what I should follow. Have somebody watch your back, man. Take care of each other. So that within that fun environment, if that's what you call a fun environment, you can let go. I don't care if it's a ball game. If that's what you're into, I want to know that within that I'm safe. That somebody has my back and that sort of thing. As a human being, that's what we could be doing for each other. So even in those kinds of circumstances, should I, shouldn't I? Do I do this? Do I do this job, that job? What would you say to a kid? And I don't think it's in me at all to say to a child, even if it's hypothetical, when I get older, what would you suggest? I would say to them, regarding jobs, I don't think it's in me that I could say to them, you know what? All that matters is the money. Benefits. Even if you hate your job, got to get those benefits. I don't think I could. And that's almost a failing as a parent in today's, and in the world in general. Because the world would say, you're nuts. You're supposed to tell them to go get a degree and do this and have benefits. And I couldn't. I told my kids, hey guys, just so you know, you're in school, at elementary school. This is, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But you're in elementary school. You can get A's, B's, F's, there's all the report card, there's all these grades on tests. Here's what I want. I want you to be happy. So if getting an A means you're too stressed and you have headaches and you can't sleep over it but you got an A, I don't want you to get an A. I don't want you to not care and hate everything and be all negative and get an F either. I'd rather you get a C and be happy than an A and be miserable or an F and be miserable. That was my parenting, my simplistic parenting style when it comes to school. And I don't think any other parent would have thought that was sane at all in the standard schools of, this world, nor at their time when they were going to school. I don't think any parent would have agreed with that, at least not the ones I knew. So it's what it all comes down to is ease. I just want you to be peaceful and happy. That's what I would tell the kid. sweetheart, I want you, and it's so cool because when I say that, which is what I said earlier, I'm saying that to myself. Wow. Me? Really? Yes, honey. Really? Just happy? Yes, yes. And, have balance. Don't say, well, I'm only happy when I eat, um, Cocoa Puffs, when in fact, if it doesn't have the nutrients you need and you get sick, then that's not reasonable. You have to have balance. I didn't preach diet to my kids when they were little. But I did say to them when they would complain to their mom, how come dad eats just nothing and junk food, and how come he gets away with that and we have to eat vegetables? And I said to them, hey guys, if ever you can remain absolutely healthy eating anything, you can eat anything. So I mean, there's the permission. If you don't need those other foods, fine. And then I put it on them to say, but if you do, stick to them. And so it's fine. It's respect the illusion of this world. Kind of play the game a little bit. The point being balance. So I don't mean that I enable or spoil a child and say, honey, you don't ever have to go to school because happiness is not going to school. Kids would rather not go, right? I'm not talking about spoil them by saying, peace and happiness. I'm talking about peace and happiness in a real sense is balanced. So it involves some pushing through some fears and so on. If a kid says, if the child within me says, but I'd rather not have a job. Oh, well then don't have one, ever. That's not sane and it's not balanced. And it in fact is enabling their ego. So all within balance. And the truth is, if I truly love the child, I wouldn't recommend that they not do anything and become, couch potatoes, teenagers that are home watching those ridiculous, kinds of talk shows where everybody's yelling at each other and pregnancy tests and whatever. Thank God I've never watched these things, but they're just so ridiculous. But that's the world's version of children, often anyway. They either overly push them to one degree or underachieve the other. So my peace and happiness would be balance. It really would be. So I wouldn't recommend one or the other, and I wouldn't do it just to enable the child, make them like me. It's just the real answer. And this isn't a child education talk here today, but it's about us. So it's kind of cool when I advise to myself today, I'm reparenting my child, my own self of my childhood, and that helps me heal my childhood. Then it also helps me instill just an ability to go, bam, right now, know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. Instead of getting caught up with doubting and overthinking, just you'll know. You might take a day and a half to learn this if you disrespect yourself enough. Yes, it might take some training and some programming of a positive nature to get you used to this. And almost nobody can lie to themselves when they use that child metaphor. So in a sense, this talks about decision making, past, present, and future decision making based on a healthy model. First, ask what peace and love would have me do. Second, and sometimes you can do either one by themselves. Secondly, what would I recommend to a child? And I always add this, that I loved. Because it's not just a child you adopted, let's say, that from a sister that passed. So it's just a child that lives with you. A neighbor's child you took in for a week or a month. I'm talking about one that you could sincerely say that you loved them. And hopefully you would love any of those children in such circumstances. But I'm just saying that there would be not just a dutiful love, but an actual real deep love. Love, just a love for that child. A caring, a wanting to do the best for them. What would you then do? And then do that yourself. Use that in just about and literally any topic. Just adopt it to the topic in some form. And, I think it's so applicable, and I think it'll change your life overnight to be able to do this. Then there's another level besides healing your own former child self, another level. And that is, wow, I'm learning to love myself more today and for tomorrow. I'm learning wow, really? Me? Child? like, wow, even for myself, the concept of a child I love. I mean, wow, it gives such permission to take care or to relax. I know people that say, oh God, oh, I have a headache, my back hurts or whatever. And I'll say, go get a massage. Oh, no, I don't have time. See, that's not what I would recommend for a child I love. I mean, my God, if a child came to me, oh, I hurt my back badly and I knew it was bad, let's go to a chiropractor, let's go to a massage, whatever, doctor, whatever. You usually, if you have a brain and a heart, you're not going to ignore the child in pain. Think about how cool this is. So you get a massage. What if I don't have a lot of money? Well, I don't know. What would you do? How would you take care of that if it were a child you loved? Give them a massage yourself. Rub your own shoulder if you have to, just like you would rub that child's shoulder. And maybe you'd call a friend. Listen, could you help me do such and such today? In this case, it might be, I really hurt my back. Would you mind? Could I trouble you if you do this? And, I can exchange or barter or whatever. Do what you need to do to not have excuses, because if you do, you're saying, I really don't care about myself, and you're affirming, nor would I care about a child in my life. But, like I said when I started, I said, beware. If you're going to say that I would do A, B, or C for a child, but I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for me, that's complete hypocrisy, and you are ruining yourself. You are affirming that you have no value, and you refuse to identify with a spiritual self. Obviously, you have an inkling if you're capable of caring for a child, but you're lying to yourself. It's complete hypocrisy. Don't say you love this, and yet you don't love that. Everything's connected. If you love the child, take care. Or for some people, it's even you to use the analogy, your dog. Oh, I love my dog. If it got hurt, oh my God, I would take it to the vet immediately. Then go get your ass a massage, man. Move it. Get your butt out the door and go get some work done. Oh, but what? Stop. Just call yourself on it. God, is that how little I love myself? Things like that. I wonder if I should put up Christmas decor this year. Damn right. The kids would love to see that when they pull up to the house at night. Look, Christmas lights. I mean, do things that make you smile. Do things playful, spontaneous, healthy though, balanced. I'm talking about real happiness, not like a buzz from a drug. I'm talking about real things. Should I meditate? Should I do yoga? I mean, their answers are simple. Well, a child wouldn't do yoga. They might. You can say, well, at my age, when I was a kid, they didn't have yoga for kids. That's not the point. Stop making excuses. Do something. Would you tell the kid to take yoga when they got older? It's a pretty good idea. A child, any person would be a lot more limber, a lot more healthy, wouldn't they? So do it. Follow the advice you would give to someone you love. That's the bottom line. And in this case, I'm using a child as a metaphor so that you can't squirm out of it and come up with some terrible decision making that you used for somebody you semi-like. Follow the advice you would give to someone you love. Any advice. An investment you would make. What you would do in your dating life. How you would decorate your house. There's just such a value to accessing the real inner child. And some people take it even further and they really, really live that child consciousness, or, whatever. They have things in their house that are kids' toys, and, and they love that childness. I think, it's great, that childlike quality, childish in the good sense, playfulness and spontaneity. So I think it's great. But any person you can think of, Hitler, Ebenezer Scrooge, whomever, if they could have treated people the way they would a child they loved, and they each loved someone in their life, if they could have, they would have been different people. Just that one exercise. Tell them something about, like, God and follow the compass of God. It's not going to speak to them. They don't like that idea. Use even the child, and look what would have happened. Maybe I'm just channeling Mr. Rogers today. you know, because I'm using such simplicity, but it's profound. Not because I'm claiming to be profound, it's profound. When I counsel people and ask them to do this, time after time after time, there's layers of epiphanies that come into the room. And of course, the person, they're permitted to they might get this dimension of it or that dimension of it. But I sit there just going, wow, I could just feel so many dimensions of answers coming. Should I do this? It could be health, it could be fitness, it could be grades in school, whatever it happens to be. One of you that might be watching had a session and have a very, very anxious, anxiety and depression and fear, and you're staying in your home a lot because of all this. And again, I used the same analogy. I said, honey, I want you to start imagining that you've got this child, and would you keep that child hold up in your house? Would you keep it away and tell it, be afraid, honey? They could see I would not do that to a child, but that's what I have to do for me. That's great, because now a light bulb's going off, and God only knows how warm that bulb can become and become a real great, can become an incubator to some new life, that light bulb that went off. Because they, for themselves, they can't even imagine going out, and so on and so on. But even they could not lie to themselves and say, yeah, I would tell any child to do this. It's so contrasted. Now that person's going to have to remember forever. And I told them, remember this forever. Look at the contrast. And that really tears them up, because the anxiety, oh my God, it's so clear to me that I shouldn't be doing this. And that's good, because the light bulb's going off. Anxious, anxious, anxious. All the lights, the alarms are going off as well. But here's what I said. No, wait, you're getting anxious because you're thinking, oh my God, it's so obvious I should be going, but I can't. No. So if it were a child and they were afraid to go out, how would you deal with that? You wouldn't tell them don't ever go out, but you wouldn't force them to do it before they could handle it. So there you go again. Even the reaction to using the metaphor, you just apply another version of the metaphor to that, and it solved that. And it's like, okay, so I can give my self-permission to do a little at a time. Yes, absolutely. You see? How much time should I give them? How much time would you give that child? I can't picture saying, you've taken way too much time to get over your emotional anxiety disorder. I can't picture that. But what I can do is picture shifting my tone of voice and saying, hey, honey, do you want to go? No, I'm too scared to go to the store. Okay, how about let me carry a piggyback ride out to the mailbox. Because that's fun. You change the structure of it, the form, and you use something a child can relate to, and you play. Now, again, that's how I would do it to a child. I apply that to me, though, and I can still do it. You know what I'm going to do as an adult? I'm going to play spy movie. I'm afraid to go out and people might see me and I'm phobic or something. I'm going to get a trench coat and a hat, and kind of stealthy, out to the mailbox. Whatever it takes. But when I get back, the piggyback ride, the stealthy spy, whatever it takes, be playful, be light about it. When I get back, though, no matter what technique I used, whatever exercise of any form, when I get back, I would say, I would make it a point, I would tell you to make it a point to say, I did it. Wow, I did it. And I'm telling you to do this as we're starting to close here. I did it. You must do that. You can't just apply the technique and then kind of brush it off, because then it's dead. You need to breathe it in and say, this is really trippy. Today, I thought about this exercise, and, I thought about I could have, some tasteless whatever from the granola store for the lunch today, but you know what? I saw this fun little ice cake thing that had a smile face, and it had a heart, and And I just thought, today I've been on that other for months or years. Today I'm going to do this. Because I would tell a child, yes, honey, if today you want to do that, it's fine. I would tell a kid, you know what? Let's skip school today. I never thought of school as being my beginning and end of life. It's, to where you can't miss a day. Once in a blue moon, spoil the kid. Let's, say, let's skip school today and let's go do something fun. See? So I would say if it came to a cupcake or something, yeah, it's okay. So make things fun, but breathe it in and say to yourself, I did it. I did it. I let myself get a massage today. Don't just, oh well, but I probably shouldn't have because I can't afford it. And blah, blah. That's not helping your backache. So what would you say to the kid? Oh my God, you're so lucky. That's so great that you got that. Congratulations. And you did that because you cleaned your room. And so it was great that you rewarded yourself with that. Talk with love and respect to yourself. It works. It's important. It works. But also, it just does so much good. What's the opposite? How much are you helping yourself by saying, you don't deserve that cupcake? Or, it'll happen. Clearly, that one cupcake, you're going to probably gain 30 pounds tonight while you sleep. The, food karma gods are going to come and get you. Come on. I mean, that's not how you should be speaking to a child. So lighten up. Lighten up. Be nice. Be kind. Be patient. And we all could use more and more of this. I didn't find that to be easy many years ago because thinking of myself as a child was not easy, wouldn't have been easy. There's like a loathing in a way that I had for myself as a child. It's kind of a hard thing, and I've never said this before to anybody, but it's kind of a hard thing to explain. But if I summarize it, there's all the pictures of me as a kid. I was always just like, just really smiling and happy. And it shifted by the time I think middle school. But the ones of me smiling, I had sort of a dislike for when I got older. Because it felt like, putting it in kind of just simplistic and crude terminology, I just felt like, you were such an idiot, Michael. You look at you were smiling all the time. You were happy, and you were so naive because look how many things ended up going poorly after my first few years. It started getting weird, and challenging and abusive and all that. And so it shifted so much into unhappy. So I kind of hated myself for ever having been happy, because what we do is even though that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, what we're doing is trying to ease the pain we have now by not contrasting it with how happy we ever might have been. So it's like, let's just pretend we were always miserable and then it's not so hard. So it took time for me to go, that's the way a kid should be. They should have been smiling all the time, and I should smile all the time. And it's okay for us to, but something could happen. You're a child of God, and you deserve good things. So whatever else the world tells you, whatever else your head tells you, whatever else your old patterning tells you, I'm happy to tell you they're all wrong. And I know people say, you shouldn't use wrong. That's a negative term. You shouldn't say something's wrong. And there is no wrong. No, they're all wrong, period. Anything that isn't true is false. Anything that isn't love is fear. And only love is real, and only love is true. Only truth is true. And the truth of God is that you are a holy child of God. So start acting like it. Treat yourself like it. That doesn't mean entitled. It means I love myself enough to care for myself and take care of myself. If I had a new version of myself as a child to take care of, it would be hard at first because I'm too close and identify with the kid, so I remember things that happened. So it'd be kind of weird at first. But you're not asked to just embrace your wounded child of the past. That one needs to be therapied and so on, yes. But the one I'm asking you to use as your barometer is any one that you would love and respect. You would only want to treat them well. And ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to go from wounded child to the one I'm talking about, one you love and respect. And then one day you'll only treat yourself as you would if you were a holy child of God. And you are. And so it is. Yeah, thank you guys so much for your continued depth and your patience and working at such cool levels of understanding. You know, we're all connected. So I never think of myself as just preaching to some audience online or in person. I never did. It never felt that way. I've always felt like we're in this and I'm being used as a certain vessel to channel, so to speak. It's figuratively speaking, because I'm not, channeling disembodied beings or whatever. It's just God as it is, as best I can, coming through me. And when we love and care for people, then that's the frequency you're on. If you're just trying to impress people, that's a different frequency, and you probably will run dry eventually of what you're channeling because it's a frequency that runs dry, because it's a well that's limited. When you love and care for people, it feels unlimited. I just feel like, I have this idea that one day I'm going to, we just had the Global Spiritual Awakening Conference wherein I was a speaker, and it was a 24-hour event, but only the staff running it was up for 24 hours presenting all these videos of all the teachers and all that. But for me, I have this idea. I'm going to do a 24-hour talk like I'm doing now for an hour or less. I just thought, that's because I could do that. I have no problem. I could talk for 24 hours channeling any topic. I mean, you guys could just send in topics and I'd just sit there, boom, 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 and anytime anybody on the planet could tune in to an appropriate time for them, they could put it on and I would be there. Why would I do that? Because I can. Because it's the point to say that it can be done. You could get in the center and plug in and never get up from that chair. I could. I honestly could. I wouldn't, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't need to eat or drink or pee or what. I wouldn't need to do any of the stuff that people do. Not because I'm trying to impress or prove anything of that nature, of a human nature, but to impress, meaning to express and to impress upon people that love can do anything, that centering into God, you can just move and groove, you can just and be in it all the time. So I've had that thought, that inspiration that maybe someday I'll do something like that. I don't know if I will, but I had the inspiration come to me, the idea come to me, so you never know. I've done crazier and things, but I love that. I love letting people know you're an unlimited being. Yeah, I just think it's great to feel that way, that we're unlimited. And I'm closing now and thanking you guys, because we're in this together. And if you did not create the vessel, then I would be teaching at a different level, a lesser level, to a different kind of group. You guys are, apparently top notch, because I feel the power and the beauty of what comes through. I've always felt plugged in when I teach. I mean, ever since, middle school, I guess, I felt really something happening. But as a teacher, leading a class, being paid for a class, that started probably when I was around 20. And it just was there. And I just felt plugged in and I felt fed by it. And the people felt fed. And it seemed so organic, so natural. And I don't believe anybody's going to ever ultimately find their soul's purpose or their soulmates and whatever else you want to think you're looking for, even God itself, if you don't know how to treat yourself as though you're someone that you love and care about. So this is at the roots of it all. And what I've talked about today is sort of a bridge between your humanistic behaviors, your humanistic healing, your human stuff, to your spiritual. Because if you don't get this, you're not going to get this. So this is not only the way to behave in both of those worlds, it's also the bridge between the two. Don't talk love if you're not going to live it. And if you're going to live it, this is a good way to do it. Treat yourself as though you were someone you loved and cared about. Thank you, guys. So blessings to you all, and I hope I see you and hear from you sometime soon. All right? Blessings. Bye-bye.